Andy Bannister thinks that wanting a god to exist is evidence that a god does exist.
It seems to be that all of us need something bigger than ourselves to live for. And I find that fascinating, because here's the problem for our atheist friends. If evolution is the only game in town, to quote Professor Richard Dawkins, if the only reason that you and I are here is to pass on our selfish genes to the next generation, then that raises the question, why is it that we have this desire for something bigger?
An interest in something greater than oneself is distinct from an interest in a god. It could manifest as a devotion to one's community, for example. I see no reason why having such a devotion cannot serve the end of passing on one's genes. It seems pretty intuitive to me that a person with an innate desire to pass on one's genes and an innate desire to cultivate a thriving, healthy community would be more likely to effectively spread their genes than someone who merely desired to pass them on to the next generation. People who have a desire to devote some effort to a cause greater than themselves could very probably be more reproductively effective than people who don't. Such a desire seems to me to be entirely consistent with evolution rather than contrary to it.
You see, we're the only animals in the animal kingdom who do this. Squirrels don't sit around wondering about the great existential uncertainties that come when they fall out of the tree and die. Human beings do. Why is it, if evolution is the ultimate reality, have we got these desires in the first place?
I think curiosity generally could provide an evolutionary advantage. Collecting knowledge is useful. Humans clearly are not the only animals who exhibit signs of curiosity. We are the only animals who show curiosity about concepts as abstract as existential uncertainties because we are the only animals capable of contemplating them. And you might ask what evolutionary advantage there is to seeking answers to such abstract questions. There may not be one. Evolution sometimes produces proclivities that in turn produce behavior that is not evolutionarily advantageous. Often such behavior is evolutionarily neutral and sometimes even counterproductive. However, as long as it is not so counterproductive as to outweigh the advantageous behavior that such proclivities also produce, natural selection will still select it.
In fact, the Oxford philosopher C.S. Lewis formulated this into something he called the argument from desire. He said it's interesting, when you look inside every creature, every species actually, we find these deep desires within them, these innate desires, and they always map onto reality. So a duckling desires to swim while there is water. Animals desire to eat while there's food. Human beings desire sexual intimacy while there is such a thing as sex. What about this desire we have for something bigger than ourselves, for something spiritual, for God even? The only logical explanation for this innate desire is that there really is something out there designed to fulfill it and meet it and connect with it.
This is awfully specious reasoning. Human beings can desire fictions even though other animals can't, because human beings are probably the only species that can even conceive of fictions.
And Lewis here actually is picking up on a biblical theme, because the Bible teaches us time and time again that God has placed this desire for him into every human being, but we suppress it and we distract ourselves with the toys and noise of society and the busy age in which we live that forces us to try and avoid asking those questions.
This seems to me to be a denial that anti-theists exist. Anyone who is an anti-theist will immediately see it as nonsense.
But they bubble up. They bubble up in art and in media and in music and all over the place. The question then becomes, what are you going to do with them? Which brings me back to agnosticism. You see, in some senses, being agnostic is a little bit like sitting on the fence. It's not willing to sort of abandon everything and leap into atheism, but nor is it willing to bow the knee and follow Jesus Christ. And what I would say to my agnostic friends watching this, it's okay to take a time to figure things out, to investigate, to try and work out if Jesus really is who he claimed to be. But then ultimately, there comes that point where you need to make a decision. Because the question that Jesus loved to ask people was this: who do you say that I am? Now, there are various answers to that question. You can write him off as a lunatic, you can write him off as a liar, or you can call him Lord and Christ.
Or I could call him fictional, or at least a historical exaggeration.
But refusing to answer the question is still to answer the question. But one thing that will help you if you're an agnostic watching this, final thought, have you ever tried the agnostic's prayer? It goes like this. When you finish watching this video, go into a quiet corner into your room somewhere and just pray this prayer. Pray, Lord, I don't actually know if you exist. I hope you do. I think you might, but I haven't got it figured out. But Lord, I really want to know. Jesus, if you're who you claim to be, please, would you help me discover what that means? Would you reveal yourself to me and bring me to that point where I can put my trust in you? I have many friends who have prayed a prayer like that, honestly, and have been very, very surprised.
I tried this several times when I was a teenager. All that happened was that I felt very, very silly. Thanks again for helping me out on Patreon.